What makes a villain? What drives a villain? What motivates him? What breaks a villain? In all of storytelling throughout the ages, the role of the antagonist has been a staple. Evil will always rise to destroy what is good, and thusly, every hero must have a villain. The Sonic franchise has had its fair share of villains, ranging from mad scientists and power-hungry mercenaries to literal reality-destroying beings of unimaginable strength. Many of these villains have made their own unique impressions in both the lore and in real life, but the one I want to focus on is a lesser-known one. A character exclusive to the IDW comics, and one that I believe could have been so much more. I'm referring, of course, to Mimic the Octopus.
Who?
Mimic is one of the many characters introduced in the comics. He's a shape-shifting mercenary who was once affiliated with the semi-militaristic strike team known as the Diamond Cutters. This team consisted of 5 members, the most relevant of these being Whisper the Wolf. She plays the role of the hero in this particular story. Mimic, in my opinion, was a really cool villain that had a ton of potential. Unfortunately, he didn't really have that big of a role in the overall narrative of the comics. I feel that this is a missed opportunity. This character could have become a major player in this franchise, using his abilities to wreak havoc across the world. In another timeline, he could have been a serious threat rather than being relegated to a D-rank side quest and then ultimately killed off. In this video, I would like to talk about how I would have written Mimic's story, and show what his true potential could have been. But first, I need to dissect the villain that we have, starting with his lethal rivalry with Whisper the Wolf. To begin to understand the relationship between these two characters and dive into what makes Mimic who he is, we must first discuss how he came to be. Because, much like heroes, every villain has a beginning. We are first introduced to Mimic during the Tangle and Whisper miniseries. The story starts out with Whisper trying to kill Sonic, much to Tangle's dismay and utter confusion. And honestly, I kinda wonder what people's reaction would be if she had succeeded. Like, imagine a guy who saved the world countless times and he just gets iced in public in broad daylight. What would your reaction be if you saw a known hero get executed in the middle of a town by some random-ass wolf? I feel like that would raise a few questions. But I guess it doesn't matter because this is never brought up ever again. She just tried to commit murder and not a single person will react to it. Tangle stops Whisper from giving the ground a new paint job. It's here where the wolf clarifies that the one she's chasing isn't Sonic, rather a shapeshifter who's taken his form. This leads to Whisper begrudgingly allowing Tangle to tag along in her hunt to find Mimic.
You shut the fuck.
Some shenanigans ensue, they almost die, and the two find themselves in the ruin of an old Eggman base. Whisper decides to tell Tangle what she's getting into, and we get a nice little lore dump explaining Mimic and his whole situation. Several months back, during the War of Sonic Forces, Mimic informed the Diamond Cutters of the location of an important Eggman facility, a target too good to pass up. On their way, Clairvoyance, yes, that is her name, tells Whisper to stay back. She feels that something is wrong, but doesn't know what. Claire is a psychic. I feel like I should have mentioned that first. Anyways, Whisper hangs back outside the base as the others go in. It's then revealed that this base was a containment site for the Shadow Androids. The robots awaken from their slumber and attack the Diamond Cutters. Mimic is nowhere to be seen, and one by one, the remaining members are eliminated. Whisper hides in the trees as she overhears a conversation between Mimic and Eggman. He's sold them out. Tangle promises to help Whisper find Mimic, and they lure him into the final showdown. At least for now, anyway. They beat his ass, send him to a nice cozy prison, and you pretty much know the story from there. But here's the question. Why did Mimic sell them out? Why did he betray his own team? At first glance, it's pretty obvious. Eggman came to Mimic, offering to spare his life in exchange for turning against the Diamond Cutters. But here's the thing. Was Eggman the one who originally approached Mimic? Or did the Octopus do it of his own volition? During the flashback in the Tangle and Whisper miniseries, Mimic states that he prefers to fight for the winning team, implying that he chose to betray his team of his own free will rather than it being a spineless act of self-preservation. But once more, the question arises, why? I'd like to show you a story from the previous annual, this one revolving entirely around Mimic. It gives us a small glimpse of his backstory and a ton of insight into his character. It opens in a forest where we see the new Diamond Cutters gathered around a fire. Bitch. Mimic is shown hiding in the shrubs, watching them closely. He begins casually breaking the fourth wall, asking the question, what is an identity? We get bits and pieces of his time before he joined the original Diamond Cutters. He was a stage actor, who often liked to take the forms of his colleagues. This, understandably, didn't exactly make him very popular within the field, but that didn't stop him. In his own words, the spotlight called to him. However, things got much more complicated for him when the war began. Instead of performing in front of an audience, he found himself hiding from Eggman's forces. He decided to join a few of the resistance groups that formed to oppose the Doctor, fighting against his machines and helping whenever possible, but much like his acting career, he would always put himself over others. It is at this point when he meets Whisper the Wolf, our adorable walking, talking Metal Gear reference. And aww, look at her, she's so cute when she smiles. She invites Mimic to meet her team, the Diamond Cutters, where he shows them his unique capabilities.
What the fuck?
He eagerly joins the team, enticed with the promise of rewards. He proves himself to be quite valuable in the fight against Eggman, getting the Diamond Cutters both in and out of tricky situations. They praise him for it, and for a moment, he almost feels like he's part of the family. Almost. When really taking a close look and reading through his words in the story, we can see that Mimic has very evident traits of a personality disorder. When reading into his other appearances within the comics, he shows signs of both sociopathy and psychopathy. But that leaves a question. Which is it? Is he a sociopath or a psychopath? And the answer is, he's both. Or at least, has been both. A sociopath has been defined as someone who lacks empathy, one who is self-serving and exploitive, who will manipulate others for his own benefit. A psychopath is quite similar, however, it can be much more extreme. Not only does a psychopath not feel empathy or remorse, but they also enjoy harming others. They take pleasure in it, they're sadistic, and they experience no guilt after the fact. While these two conditions overlap in several areas, they are two distinct conditions. So, how could Mimic be both? He started out as a sociopath, and gradually, over time, grew to become a psychopath. Allow me to explain. As we see in the annual story, Mimic isn't technically evil, but he is a horrible person. During his acting days, all he cared about was the spotlight. It's all he desired. During the war, he joined several resistance groups, but every single time he would leave his teammates behind, opting to save his own skin rather than theirs. This pattern was repeated with the Diamond Cutters. When Eggman came a-knockin', he immediately turned against his team the moment it seemed that the risk outweighed the reward. No matter how well they treated him, no matter how many missions they ran, no matter how much they cared for him, he simply didn't care for them back. Part of this can be attributed to how he perceives his own personality as well as the personality of everyone around him. This ties back into his question at the beginning of the story regarding identity. He believes that each person wears a mask, they play a role, they act. He sees no sincerity behind anyone's words or actions, but views them as facades to hide their true self. He even believes this with the Diamond Cutters, the one group of people who have actually cared for him, but his mind just will not accept it to be true. This greatly contributes to his lack of feelings towards others. He cannot care about anyone else because he doesn't believe that people can be selfless. He claims to be the only one who can see this, but his sight is what suppresses his ability to care. In a moment of self-reflection, we see a tiny glimpse of a conscience. His mind can't help but wonder what it would be like to actually belong, to have a family. But he pushes those thoughts away. I noticed him saying something that I thought was very interesting. He actively hides his true self from the team. He thinks they won't accept him. It's almost as if he feels guilt for his past actions. But once again, he buries those thoughts. He reaches the conclusion that a relationship with the Diamond Cutters is dangerous. Allowing himself to care for anyone would make him vulnerable, weak, and for his own self-preservation, he must be rid of them. This is what would eventually lead him to betray his teammates. He chose to do it, not because of an external threat, but an internal one. Eggman simply provided the out that he was looking for, even if it did backfire somewhat. These are traits that can definitely be associated with that of a sociopath, albeit a very mentally disturbed one. But his shift into psychopathy comes much later. After his defeat at the hands of Tangle and Whisper, Mimic came to resent his former teammate. Before, she was just a target to be taken out to ensure his own safety. Had Eggman not forced him to finish the job, he could have moved on with his life, now that the Diamond Cutters were out of the picture. But after she and Tangle defeated him that day and had him arrested, something changed in his mind. Something switched. He was no longer indifferent to Whisper. He now hated her. It is at this point where he begins to shift more towards a psychopathic mindset. This was no longer about survival. He wanted revenge. Surely it wouldn't end well for him. Whisper knew several powerful characters, a few of which that are completely okay with murder. But once more, he had blinded himself with his own internal conflicts. She had to be punished. But his anger wasn't the only thing pushing him to do this. In the annual, he reflects on his decision to betray the Diamond Cutters. As he looks back on his decision, he decides that he had no choice. The Diamond Cutters were a disease, tearing him apart from the inside. It had to be done. There was no family for him, no friendship. It was all lies. He couldn't cure himself of this disease until every last one of them was dead. And maybe, once that happened, he could finally move on. No more pain, no more guilt, no more anger. This nightmare could finally end. But first, Whisper had to be eliminated. Then he f***ing died.
Have a nice ball, you stupid bitch.
Mimic as a villain is a fascinating case of missed potential. There are so many different ways that they could have handled this character that would have made him so much more impactful to the overall story. Think about it. He might not be nearly as powerful as the other characters in the franchise, but he does have something that could have easily evened those odds. Where he lacks in physical strength or power, he could have made up for it with his intelligence and cunning. Now, if I had the ability to fix the character of Mimic, here's how I would have done it. My biggest problem with Mimic's character is that he's a coward. He talks big shit and then runs away at the slightest chance of disadvantage. This would be the first thing that I would fix. When faced with a tough situation, instead of saying, "Fuck this shit, I'm out," he utilizes his ability to overcome it, to shift the odds more in his favor. We actually see him do this in the Tangle and Whisper miniseries, where he uses Tangle's friendship with Jewel to give himself an emotional and tactical advantage. He shapeshifts into Jewel, making Tangle hesitant to strike him, even though she knows that it's Mimic. Now, in a more heated confrontation, this specific tactic might not work, but this is just an example of him being able to manipulate the situation in order to give himself an edge. He outsmarts his opponents rather than flee. Which brings me to my next problem with Mimic. He's a dumbass. He takes risks that he doesn't need to, and he makes stupid decisions that eventually get him killed. When he infiltrates the Restoration as his alter ego Duo, he makes an effort to join the new Diamond Cutters in order to get close to Whisper. Okay, so far so good. Now all he has to do is keep a low profile and... Fuck. He had this shit locked down. He was on the team. They didn't suspect a thing. All he had to do was not draw any attention to himself. But what does he do? He pisses off one of the most powerful beings on the planet. Now he happens to get away with it because Lanolin's a bitch, but it doesn't change the fact that it was an absolutely retarded decision. He ain't even been there for a day. Less than 24 hours and he almost blew his cover. Worst spy ever.
That heavy's a spy!
Fixing this problem would have been easy by, well, having some fucking common sense. Don't cause problems where others can see. Try not to piss off a guy who can tear you apart with his mind, stuff like that. Now these changes are small, but they would have added so much to this villain. If the writers had made this character just a little smarter, then he could have easily been one of the most impactful villains in the entire franchise. Someone who can blend into any crowd. Someone who can take anyone's form with just a thought. He could gain access to any place or any object he wants and cause mayhem right under everyone's noses. A small sabotage here, a little misinformation there, and nobody would suspect a thing until it was too late. He could make it so that nobody could be trusted, everyone suspicious of everybody, and when he was done, disappear into the night to plan his next attack. A psychotic, vicious antagonist with no mercy or remorse. And no one, not even Sonic himself, would be able to stop him. For how do you fight an enemy that you can't see?